Hey RJ, while we're waiting, we'll do a little bit of intro here,
Okay.
and just so everybody knows who you are. I mean, Kevin obviously knows who you are. So, just for everybody's knowledge, RJ, just quick your name and where you live.
I'm RJ Nealon. I am 26 years old and I live on the eastern shore of Maryland.
Great. And RJ, when did you start in Special Olympics?
I started nearly 2 decades ago, close to it. I've been an athlete ever since, and now I'm an athlete leader and self advocate.
And when you started, what sports did you originally start in, RJ?
I have done so many sports. My main sports are basketball and swimming, but I've done kayaking, cycling, and a lot of other sports.
And do you have a favorite?
Basketball.
That's awesome. And as we were preparing for this, we talked a little bit about your love for sports. How important is sports in your life, RJ?
Sports is everything. Sports is the reason I am where I am in my life. It's the reason I chose to attend the University of Alabama, and why I fell in love with storytelling.
That's pretty cool. So say a little bit more about how sports led you to Alabama.
Yeah, so I competed my whole life, and then I was at a community college, and I took a journalism class. And I fell in love with writing about sports. And Alabama has one of the best athletic departments in the country, and their sports journalism school is one of the best in the country as well. So with the connections it has, and with Alabama football, I knew Alabama was the right school for me.
And so you recently graduated, right, from Alabama?
Yes, in December.
And it was with a degree in sports journalism?
Yes, with a degree in sports journalism and a minor in communication studies.
And can just so everybody has an understanding, when in terms of getting your degree at Alabama, what, if any, support systems did you get while you were there at the school to help you matriculate?
I had so much support system. Special Olympics supported me with my decision to go to Alabama. The state of Maryland supported me on my decision. Just really everyone was on board. They knew it was going to be tough for me, but I stuck it through. And ultimately, my love for sports really helped me along the way.
Um, and what was the so how many years were you at University of Alabama? Were you
I was there for 3.5 years.
okay? And what's your dream job?
My dream job is to be a storyteller. I want to write the long form stories that you see in magazines, but I'd also love to be on TV. And one of my biggest goals is to be a Special Olympics commentator with ESPN one day.
Well, that's pretty cool. I'm going to wait. We've gotten information from Lisa at ESPN that Kevin's trying to log in, and I know Alexis provided some information. So hopefully he'll join us because I think these last questions I really want Kevin to hear. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you were going to give any advice to your fellow athletes in terms of chasing their dreams, what would you say?
Go do it. Don't be afraid of how difficult it may be. Alabama was very difficult for me, but with Special Olympics and my love for sports, it really helped me drive to finish my goal. Um, if I say if your dream's not crazy, it's not big enough. So keep dreaming crazy because anything can happen.
All right, so I think it's worth repeating that. Say that again.
If your dream isn't too big, if your dream isn't crazy, it's not big enough. I live by that. You can do anything that you set your mind to with hard work.
And where would you say you derive that level of commitment and confidence in living your life like that?
From pro athletes. A good example is last night, Michael Jordan's documentary, his will to be the greatest of all time. That's the mentality that I live by. The to give it my best shot. If I fail, I'll do it again until I achieve it. So looking up to athletes, really.
All right. Well, look, we've done a nice job. It looks like Kevin has joined us. So, Kevin Negandhi, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We've been just doing a quick Q&A with RJ, and I've saved the last couple of questions here for you to join us. So I'm going to just ask RJ to talk a little bit about his interaction with you during the preparation. RJ, you talked about how impressed you were with Kevin's preparation when you were doing your internship up at ESPN. Can you just share a little bit more about your observations of Kevin and what impressed you?
It was incredible. I got to interview Kevin at the 2018 Special Olympics USA Games, and I had applied to the ESPN internship every year I was at Alabama, and I finally got it my last year. So I had the opportunity to shadow Kevin on 2 different occasions. His preparation and everyone else that was involved just blew my mind how much goes into making a show successful.
And what would you say was the greatest lesson that you got from shadowing Kevin and watching him?
Attention to detail. That's the biggest thing, attention to detail.
That's awesome. Kevin, you've joined us. I just want to make sure, are you able to hear us?
Jim, he says he can't hear a thing right now, so we're working that out. So.
Okay. So are you able to hear us? I know I can do this in chat, but.
So he's not getting. Oh.
Okay, so Lisa can hear us, but Kevin cannot.
Is he muted?
Yeah, I think he's working on that, RJ. He's not muted on our screen. He's unmuted here. Okay, so he's trying to hit the F1 button. That's not working.
Hi, everybody. This is Lisa from ESPN.
Hey, Lisa, how are you?
There, good. I'm going to try to get my video back on. I'm in my baseball hat. Hi. So I'm just going to step in here for a second while we wait for Kevin to try to figure this out. I know he really wanted to do this today. So Kevin, I think the one more thing that you could do is if you look on the bottom and you see share screen, there might be an opportunity there to get your voice up, your computer sound, and go to advanced, and then you could hit music or computer sound, and then hopefully maybe that will work. Sorry that there's an issue today.
No problem. We appreciate all your efforts. Lisa, is there something you think I can do from my end?
I'm not quite sure. He can't hear us, but and I asked him to unmute too, so it's not like he could just chime in here at this moment. One thing I want to say, RJ has just been really valuable to us here at ESPN. So I just will add that in. He's been really, he had a great opportunity with us working as an intern, and I'm sure Kevin's going to talk a little bit more about that. But there's a really great relationship that he has with many people here at ESPN. That internship was something that he was in line with all the other people who wanted sports internships at ESPN, and to get one of the 20 that were available was really a a feat in itself to be able to do that. So he's highly qualified, and we really appreciate the work he does for us.
Thank you, Miss Lisa.
I'm a big fan. You know I am.
Well, I appreciate that because I think it's really valuable going back, RJ, to your, if it's not crazy enough, it's not big enough. The fact that it was such a competitive experience and that he got it based on his credentials, I think speaks volumes to everything, Lisa, that you and ESPN are committed to as it relates to our global partner on unified sports end of things. Is there anything while we wait for Kevin that you'd like to share as it relates to the commitment that ESPN has made to being a global partner with Special Olympics and how you feel like that's progressing?
Yeah, I've been with ESPN for a long time, 35 years, over 35 years. But I don't know how that happened because I'm about 35 years, or I'm 27 years old. So, I started off with ESPN. It was the first time I ever volunteered for Special Olympics is through ESPN. And just to see where we've grown is just been amazing. I mean, in 2013, we became the global presenting sponsor of Unified Sports. And to me, that was like the huge tipping point. We've always did things locally. We did one-offs here and there with some of our broadcast of covering the World Games and all. But, just seeing like
you.
We're doing this. Ooh, is Kevin on?
Yes.
Kevin's on. Hey, Kevin. I was pinch hitting for you there.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I can now see and hear everybody. I had to I think I had to re-download the new app and then get back in.
There's a lot of security stuff.
That's awesome. Hey, Kevin, this is Jim Schmutz. I'm the president and CEO for Special Olympics Maryland. I just want to thank you for taking the time to be on with us. Lisa's been talking a little bit about the impact of the global partnership with Special Olympics. We did a little Q&A with RJ that I'm going to just do the last question because I really want you to hear what he has to say about how important you are to him in his life and his desire to achieve his crazy big goals. So RJ, if we could just revisit, as we were preparing for the call today, you talked about how valuable an experience it was with Kevin when you shouted him up at ESPN during your internship. Can you just talk about the thing that impressed you the most about that shadow experience?
Yeah, the shadow experience was incredible. And what stood out the most was Kevin's and all the producers' attention to detail, to get every little thing perfectly correct. That stood out to me the most. Manny Diaz said before, if it's not all the way right, then it's all the way wrong. And ESPN really lives by that.
And RJ, we're going to use this as a segue, but I have to tell you, it seems that you came to that internship prepared to live by that standard, and you continue to do that. And the inspiration that you've drawn from Kevin and that experience, I think, continues to show today. Because Kevin, you'd be really proud of the preparation that RJ's put in, and I think you can take pride in knowing that you've contributed to that. So RJ, I'm going to stop talking and turn this over to you because you are the man today. Let's go for it.
Awesome. First and foremost, thank you, Kevin, for joining us today. I hope you and your family are well during these unprecedented times. Before we get started, how'd you like last night's Last Dance?
It was great. So first off, RJ, thank you for inviting me. And Lisa, thanks for coordinating this. And Jim, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate everybody's patience as I was trying to get into this Zoom chat. So I'm really excited about this. Last night, leading up to it, the build up, and then, when it was around 8 o'clock Eastern time, we're like around an hour away from watching it. It honestly felt like the same feeling I would get in my stomach ready for the NBA Finals in Game 1, how you're really excited and you know who's all involved. So we all knew who was involved in this documentary, but there was an unknown, right? So when you're watching a game, you're excited, there's superstars around, but there's still an unknown. And I had the same feeling as I would the night of watching a game one of the NBA Finals, and it delivered. And the cool thing is, game one of the NBA Finals means you've got one game, but the series isn't over. That's the same thing with this documentary. We had 2 episodes, but it's not over. We've got 4 more nights where we're going to run back-to-back episodes, and I thought it was really well done. I cannot wait for episode 3, where they start to talk about the bad boys and the Detroit Pistons in the late 80s, and then how that shaped Michael Jordan in the 90s. And it's a perfect example of dealing with adversity. And when you understand what that adversity is, it helps you long term, if you can overcome the adversity, to be a better person. And that's who we saw Michael Jordan. He against the Pistons, he was beaten up. He failed several times, got back up, and he got stronger, got more prepared for that run in the 90s where he won 6 titles. So I can't wait for next Sunday.
Yeah, the anticipation of it was like I was getting ready to watch a live game. It was incredible. I cannot wait until next Sunday. As a reporter at ESPN, especially Sports Center, how has a COVID-19 impacted how you research and approach your live shows?
Right. It's changed everything. When I go into work now, my producer's, 6 feet away, but I'm at my desk now. Usually we work in a pod system where, RJ, you've seen it before, where we're right next to a producer and a director and another producer and a researcher. We all have everybody within 10 feet of us. We have 6 to 8 people all at their computer desks, and they're all right next to each other. We can talk about the show and how we're going to change things. Now I may see 4 or 5 people at ESPN every time I go into work because I'm working at my desk. And then I go, let's just say I work today from 5 to 7 for Sports Center. I go in around 2 o'clock. I'm writing the show up until 4:45, and then I walk over to the studio, and that's the first time I see my co-anchor. And we're 6 feet away from each other, and our researchers at home. And if I want to get any information, I have to send them a note or her a note, and then they send an email. Usually, it would be like me talking to somebody right across the room, and they can give me that information. So you've got to be patient, understanding. You got to also have open communication, which is essential. And it's a completely different dynamic. But one thing has not changed, and I think Jim mentioned it. It's the DNA of ESPN is the work ethic, and to make sure we do everything right. And we've made sure to do that right for 2-hour shows. And I'm really proud of our group because we've gone above and beyond. And that is a mixture of teamwork. It's a perfect example of having the right team together, and we do the job and we do it right. And then we call it a day. So there is no wrong in what we're trying to do. We make sure we do everything right.
With no sports going on, how has ESPN really brainstormed on how they approach the programming side of things, what shows on TV and what not?
Excellent question, RJ. It's a completely different world for us. So what we try to do is, and it goes to our producers, we have a noon meeting. So I have a noon show meeting on the phone, and we're going to go through ideas, and they're going to go around the room. Who has an idea? What do you want to pitch? And for example, I would pitch something about the NFL draft, which is 3 days away. And we go around the room. What kind of guests do we have? I'm sure we're going to talk about the Jordan documentary from last night. What guests do we have? What's the very latest around how the NFL is going to handle their OTAs next week through virtual meetings? So all of that's going on together. And then at the end of every show, we make sure, like last week, we did a top 10 moments of Michael Jordan. We did, the night we celebrated Kobe's final game where he dropped 60 points, and that was 4 years ago. So last week we did a top 10 of Kobe's great moments. So we have some mixture of highlights, which I love at the end of the show, but a lot of it is some thoughtful interviews and some great writing. And it just takes some time and brainstorming with our entire crew.
Yeah, speaking on the NFL draft, how do you think a virtual draft is going to go? Do you think people are going to tune in to watch it?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I think everybody's going to tune in. And I think it's going to be fascinating because there is going to be a little bit of the unknown. You're depending on everything you want to do through Wi-Fi and through your cell phone, and making sure people are texting back and forth. And so I think there's I think there's a combination of two things. Everybody wants to know who their favorite team is going to draft, but I think everybody else wants to know how smooth it goes and what kind of drama will we have leading into it and in between picks if someone can get a pick in time and everything goes smoothly. And if we have a trade, that means it's a little bit complicated. And Adam Schefter, I'm sure, will have the details on how the trade will go down.
So who's your dark horse top pick? For me, it's Utah State's Jordan Love.
So dark horse top pick, I mean, I think Jordan Love's going to have a really good career. I'm curious about which teams are going to draft him now. The question is, who's going to make a move? Who wants to make some noise and go from there? So to me, for quarterbacks, it's very tricky. It depends on what system you go to, what kind of organization. Are you going to have a patient owner? And also it goes into, the right players around you. So if you're a talented quarterback and you go to the wrong team and an ownership that's not patient and a coaching staff that's not patient, it could hurt you. So it all depends on how patient the organization is.
So I have to ask this because I'm an Alabama guy. You think Tua Tagovailoa is a top 5 draft pick?
He should be. I love Tua. I think the world of Tua. I think he's going to be – whoever drafts him is going to be very lucky. I think he should be potentially at the 5th pick overall of the Dolphins if the Dolphins don't try to trade up. So I think that would be a great situation. I also think if he went to the Chargers, he'd be in a good situation there considering the talent that's around him.
Absolutely. I know you're the same way with Philadelphia sports as I am with Alabama. So do you think there's going to be a football season? And if so, do you think it's going to start on time?
I'm an optimist, RJ. So I believe in we're 4 months away. So let's take it one day at a time. So I believe that we're going to have an NFL season. I'm not sure if we're going to have it in September. Here's the thing. We're dealing with abnormal times, right? Nothing in our lifetime we've experienced. So we don't have to go by a rule book that says we have to start the season at this time. Or, for example, the NBA season, well, we have to fit everything in at this time. I think we have to think outside the box and say, all right, whenever it's safe, whenever, our health officials and the doctors and the scientists believe it's a good environment for us to go out and, our athletes are going to be safe and the people around organizations are going to be safe, then we can entertain that idea. And if that means one concept is starting the college football season in January, I'm fine with that. Like, you have to think outside the box and be open to many ideas to make things work.
Now, if college football starts in January, do you think a lot of players are going to forego their last season because of the draft? It's so soon.
That's a good question. It's a very smart question. I think you're going to see a mixture of some guys, and then you're going to see a mixture of some guys that want to play to make sure that they can improve their draft status. Like, for example, Joe Burrow. A year ago at this time, no one was talking about Joe Burrow being the number 1 pick. He was potentially a 5th, 6th, or 7th round guy, and then he had to play the season to prove that he could, increase his value. So you're going to see some guys that decide, hey, I feel like I'm a 1st round pick. I'm okay. I don't want to sacrifice any or take any risks with my health. And you're going to see some guys say, I need to improve my stock, so I need to play right now. And I think you're going to see a combination of that.
Yeah, LSU was so much fun to watch last season, even though they beat Alabama.
They were. That was a great game, too.
Now that we've talked current events, I want to switch the focus over to Special Olympics. How long and what led you to get involved with Special Olympics?
So I was very lucky to be approached by Kevin Martinez at ESPN 5 years ago about the concept of our involvement with Special Olympics, that is ESPN. And he said, this is a movement we believe in as a company. He asked about my interest, and I was all in. But the cool thing was I got the chance to go out to the LA Games, and I was with Lisa Kavlakis, who's here on the call, and she was so good with taking care of me and showing me around LA for 2 days and being involved with some of the sporting events. And there's nothing better to see athletes get the opportunity across the board. And for me, it hit home because all I asked for was an opportunity in my life to get into broadcasting. There was no one of Indian descent in the sports industry when I started this dream as a 14-year-old. So I could understand and relate to the idea of just give me a chance. I just want an opportunity. And so when I saw the smiles on the faces of the athletes and the joy in the families and the friends and the volunteers all involved, to me, it was a no-brainer. And the best thing about ESPN is when we believe in something, no matter what it is, we go all in, right? We find a way to say, this is ours. We understand what we're doing. Let us be involved, because we have a bunch of A personalities across the board. That's what this whole company's about. And we embraced everything about it. And we've had a fantastic run for the last 5 years, and whether it's broadcasting the USA Games, the World Games, in Los Angeles, in Austria, doing the USA Games in Seattle. Everything we've done is top notch because we want to make sure the viewer understands that we believe in this platform. And, the concept of inclusion, I've stated this many times, RJ, it's not just a 2-week thing. It's not just the Olympics. This is a thing that surrounds communities on a daily basis, everywhere you go. So it's important for us to stress that the athletes that are involved, the families and the volunteers, they're doing this every single day. We highlight it for 2 weeks, but it's part of their life. And we wanted to make sure that we could showcase those stories along with the athletes and the games in between those 2 weeks when we're providing the network content. And, to me, you can't replace an athlete's face on the stands when they're getting a medal and they're celebrating with their family and friends. RJ, there is nothing better. It is as pure as sport can be. And I like doing it because it also gives me a reset, and it reminds me of the values and the reason why I got in this business.
Absolutely. A couple of weeks ago, you tweeted, and I was a part of the tweet. What does respect and the inclusion revolution mean to you?
I think it means everybody gets an opportunity. Everybody gets a chance. And, the great Tim Shriver said, choose to include. I mean, he said that not as a mantra that he thought would stick, but it's 100% accurate. It choosing to include. When you choose to include, you are not just helping one person. You're helping so many people around that person. And you're helping communities. You're helping understand that everybody is an equal. And that to me is what respect is, that I respect you as a person. You respect me as a person. I value you and your beliefs, and you value my belief system. And I think that's what it means.
2 weeks ago, the Phoenix Suns named Devin Booker as the newest Special Olympics global ambassador. What type of impact does that have on the athletes and volunteers involved with Special Olympics?
I think Devin's one of those young guys that understands, just the same way Damian Lillard gets it. And when you have Devin Booker, who has also a platform that goes globally, where he has ties in China and he does a bunch of off-season camps in China, and he believes in something like this. It just doesn't affect people in the United States. It affects everybody outside too, and who Devin Booker can touch. And when you're talking about a young man who's in his early 20s, that means for the next 20 years, wherever he goes in his career, he's going to have Special Olympics right by his side. And that helps all of us, right? That helps the platform. It helps educate people. It helps break, walls and barriers. And I believe in it. So I think having Devin Booker as an ally really helps what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. So what's the next Special Olympics event that you're excited about when sports do come back?
Man, there are so many. I mean, I think the next event will be the actual next event. I'm just looking forward to all the communities being given the opportunity to go back outside. I think it's it's crucial that we have something like this where we have a Zoom community where we could talk to each other and we have the social interaction. I think that's really important. And so the next event is the next event that I can't wait for. It's not like looking long-term to potentially where the World Games will be, or Germany down the road, or Orlando down the road. To me, it's in every single community, the next Special Olympics event will be the next big one. So I can't wait for, while I'm happy that we are following the guidelines, I can't wait for the opportunity to be outside, and hopefully it'll be in the summertime.
Absolutely. So involved with you and Special Olympics, what are ways that Special Olympics athletes can get involved with sports not being a thing right now?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think the way Special Olympics athletes can still be involved is stuff like this. Zoom chats are really helpful with unified partners, with other athletes across the board that you may have met in other events. I think also, what helps me? I go to YouTube and I just watch videos of certain athletes. I think that could be helpful for many athletes trying to gather inspiration. If you want to watch another Special Olympic athlete or an athlete you admire who plays professionally, you could go to YouTube. There's so many videos out there where you get the chance to watch what they do, and maybe in the house, well, I don't want to say jump off anything, but try and practice or stay in shape. And I think those things play a role to keep your mind active and keep your mind healthy.
Awesome. So I saw a comment in the chat that if anyone has any questions for you, they can ask. But before we get to that, I'd like to steal a play from Scott Van Pelt's playbook and leave everyone inspired. So can you share some of your proudest and most memorable moments involved with Special Olympics?
Ooh, man, there was a couple. Probably my proudest with Special Olympics is maybe the proudest in my career was being invited to the White House when President Obama held a forum and honored many of the Special Olympic athletes and their families. And 200 of us went to the White House to have a dinner, and Katy Perry performed. And you get the chance to see the athletes and their faces and the families that are inside the East Room and interacting with many of the White House officials. That was awesome. And then there were a lot of celebrities that were there too that were involved. That to me will probably go down as the highlight of my career. As for, Austria was amazing just because there were so many stories of people getting a chance, like, she's now one of our colleagues, Dana Schultz, who just basically said, all I wanted was opportunity. And then she was a gold medal winner with Hannah Teeter. So those are the things that, I look at the celebrations and triumph and seeing people getting the chance to go to Abu Dhabi for the first time. That was the first trip for me in Abu Dhabi, and exploring new places and meeting people from a variety of different countries. That's the stuff you can't replace. Those are the memories that no matter what, no one can take away. And you get that from the interaction and the competition.
That's awesome. Yeah, Special Olympics is so much more than sports. It involves communication, public speaking, self-advocacy. So it's really awesome to have you and ESPN involved. I want to open up the floor for anyone that has questions for you that are listening.
Hey, RJ, this is Jim. I've got one that came through the chat that I'll share with Kevin. Obviously, you've got a family there, 3 young kids. How are you handling this special time with your kids at home?
Well, then, you have your good days and your bad days and your challenging days. This morning was a challenging day because last week was spring break. So we didn't do any distance learning. So today when we try to activate, hey, let's start getting back into it. My 2 oldest boys are 6 and 7, gave me some resistance. So we've been actually very blessed though, because it's given us the chance to sit down with them for long periods of time and play board games, stuff that I used to grow up on, and introduce them to games that I loved. And so Saturday's a perfect example. I got the chance to teach them the board game Risk, which I grew up on. And the next thing you know, we're playing for 6 hours. and they didn't want to get up. This morning, I was trying to get up. I heard them downstairs rolling the dice because the two boys are playing Risk. We're involved in Monopoly. We get the chance to go outside. It's been good. Like, the kids have been very resilient, and I'm very lucky they've been adaptable. I'm a stickler for making sure we still do our academics every day. So every now and then it's like, boo daddy. But, most of the time there's a lot of fun, and we're getting a chance to be involved with them more and more, because again, they're here all day. My wife works as well as I do. So we're like sometimes two ships passing, we're involved. And my 3-year-old daughter actually loves the interaction with her two brothers. The cool thing is that in the morning we have a Zoom chat that we set up at her daycare where all the 3-year-olds join with their parents, and then we have story time reading. So she's also involved as well, with her own type of social distance learning. So it's been good. You have this is not going to be perfect. If it was, then I'd have some questions. You have your ups, you have your downs, you learn a lot, you'll laugh a lot. And the biggest key is that we all get to grow together.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Hey, RJ, can you see the question in the chat? Do you want to take that one, or you want me to take it?
I can take it.
All right.
So it takes hours of recording video sometimes to create just minutes of content for highlight pieces at the World Games and the USA Games. Is that formula the same when you do research for your interviews?
Yeah, and that's a very, very good question. Like, for example, our interviews are really on SportsCenter between 3 to 5 minutes. And like my Tua interview 2 weeks ago, Tua Tagovailoa, was an 8-minute interview. I did about an hour of research that day. And the reason why I only needed an hour is because, I knew a lot of Tua's background leading into it as well. So if I'm interviewing a subject I know nothing about, like a perfect example, I was very lucky to sit down with Tom Brady 3 years ago on a trip to China, where I was with him for a week in China and Japan. And my first interview with him was a 42-minute interview. It took me 3 weeks of research, of reading a variety of different articles, interacting with 3 producers, going to research, coming back and forth. And you're reading these stories, you're highlighting stuff, you come back to it. And then what you're basically doing is developing an interview list of questions. And I had about 35 questions, but when I believe a good interviewer is somebody that interviews you and asks you 1 or 2 questions, but then goes off of your answers. And that shows that you're listening, and that shows that you're involved. And you're going to get better answers if you listen to the subject and then ask them questions about what they're saying, instead of looking down at a sheet constantly, because then you may be missing something. And many times the subject wants to tell you something, and you may miss it because you're paying attention to, I got to go to the next question, instead of, hey, I should be focusing and listening to the subject. So I've always stressed to people that a good interviewer always listens and does a follow-up question. And sometimes those 30 questions you may have, you throw them out the door, but you'll have a better interview because you're just listening to the person and you're reacting to the person.
Yeah, so regarding that follow-up questions, what's your advice to somebody that has a list of questions and they get stumped and they can't think of a question in the moment? What do you suggest they do?
I think you can have 4 or 5 basic questions, but never ask a yes or no question. I think you can ask, why did you do it? What were you thinking? Those are questions that you're putting in the subject's lap for them to expand. The why and the what are very important. How did you do that? How did you approach this conversation? How did you approach that free throw? Like, when you go to some of the most basic questions, you'll get really thoughtful answers. So in your mind, and it takes time, RJ, because it took me a lot of discipline, a lot of years of practice, a lot of conversations, a lot of mistakes. There have been many times I've walked away and said, I should have asked that question. Why did I let that go? That's just trial by error, and you guys got to just keep on asking those smart questions and think about the reaction. And you can practice by doing this with friends. You could practice by doing this, with family members, by asking questions to them and seeing what they say, and then doing a follow-up question. Then you find a way to get comfortable.
Absolutely. I do that. I admit it. I practice interviewing my brothers all the time on
That's
sport.
great. Love it.
Here's a question. How do you think the Eagles and the city of Philadelphia as a whole would fare without Jenkins in the locker room?
Yeah, that's a good question, RJ. Malcolm Jenkins was the heart and soul of the Eagles locker room for the last 5 years. He was the big reason why that defense stood out, and he played a huge role when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I'm curious to see who the voices will be. I'm sure Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox on the defensive side will step up, and that means just more pressure on Carson Wentz, right? And if you're the franchise quarterback, you're getting paid like the franchise quarterback. There's a reason why they want you to be the leader. So I think this falls on Carson Wentz to step up.
Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier in the interview, you interviewed Tua Tagovailoa. Do you have a favorite athlete that you've interviewed, professionally or collegiate?
Wow, that's a really good question. Bo Jackson's my favorite athlete of all time. I've had the chance to talk to him a couple of times, and I had posters of Bo Jackson everywhere. As a 14-year-old kid who had a bunch of, I think I want to say 9 posters of Bo, and so to meet Bo and interview Bo was such a thrill. And he's huge in the state of Alabama. I know he went to Auburn, but he's just huge in the state. You know that, RJ. I've been very lucky. I've had the chance to talk to Michael Jordan. I've had the chance to interview Allen Iverson, which was a great interview because Allen hugged me a couple of times during the interview and got a little emotional. Of course, the Tom Brady experience. There are a variety of different athletes for different reasons. So whether it's a Special Olympic athlete, whether it's the chance to sit down with a superstar, to me, it's the best answers. It's how they are as a human being, how approachable they are. Those are my favorite stories. Like, to me, Warwick Dunn, who was a Bucks running back, and then he went to the Falcons. I always bring him up just because I was a young 23, 24, 25-year-old that was following the Bucks in my early part of my career, and he was so kind to me when he didn't have to be. And I'll never forget guys like that. So those are the guys that stand out to me, that I look back and I have a lot of fun with. And then, it's really cool, like, to talk to guys like Tua because I know his father, I know his family, and I think he's just a really good human being. So I get a thrill talking to guys like that to see where they land and how they develop.
How do you keep yourself calm when you're going to interview, let's say, a childhood idol of yours? How do you stay calm for that? Because I know I got to interview Nick Saban before, and I asked the question, and it came out jibber jabber.
Oh, that's RJ. So we do that all the time. Listen, you do that, especially early in your career. You do that all. I stumbled so many times early on, and it just takes experience and time, and understand that they're human beings. They've been in the same spot as you, right? So if you can't laugh at yourself and say, hey, can we do that again? I remember I interviewed Tim Floyd. He's a college basketball coach that became the Bulls coach, and I interviewed him the first time when I was 23, and I remember he was my first interview at my first job in Missouri, and we did this whole interview, and I'll never forget that I forgot to press the record button. I was so nervous, and we did like a 25-minute interview, and I was so nervous, and I went back to the TV station, and I put in the tape, and there was nothing in there, and let me tell you, I thought my career was over. And I found a way to get Tim again. I talked to him for a couple more minutes, and he was just so kind and cool about it. But at the time, you're embarrassed, and now I can laugh about it, right? So many times these guys understand. They're patient. They should be patient, the athletes. They should understand because they were in the same boat as us.
Absolutely. I go back to my interviews all the time and laugh at all my mistakes.
Yeah.
It happens.
Exactly.
We have a lot of athletes on this call. you talked about preparation for interviews and public speaking. What advice do you have to the other athletes on this call?
It's a good question. My first piece of advice, and I do it every day before I go on the air. So even 20 years in TV and 14 at ESPN, before I go on the air, I take 10 deep breaths. So I basically calm myself down. I find a way to calm myself down. It's a breathing exercise that has helped me many times, because you're excited, you're anxious, you want to control those emotions. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to be excited. All those emotions are great. That means you want to do well, right? The advice I have with breathing with those exercises is it's controlling those emotions so you can still be yourself. And there's nothing wrong with smiling. If you're on the air with somebody and you smile, no, that will always put you in the right place. And I think it will always set the tone. Don't take yourself so seriously. Don't think everything needs to be serious. And just be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else, because that was a piece of advice I got when I was in college, because I thought I had to be a broadcaster, right? And I had somebody, one of my mentors, tell me, hey, just be yourself. You've got a good voice already, and people are here to see you. They're not here to see somebody you're making up in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that this past summer with you on SportsCenter, you and Sage Steele was just being yourselves, goofing off, laughing, just being calm. And it really, that's one of the lessons that stuck with me. Just be yourself and don't get too uptight, too tense.
That's the best TV, RJ, because people want to see you human. If you're too perfect, then they can't relate to you.
Another question is, what do Special Olympic athletes have to do to qualify to be a sportscaster or work for ESPN one day?
Wow. Well, that's a really good question. I think it's just hard work. It's making sure you have a good tape, and that means you work somewhere else on camera. You're comfortable with yourself. You can do interviews. You can do highlights. But the most important thing is that you have to have a good tape, and a tape means you on the air somewhere else in a couple different places, showing that you could be on TV as an anchor. You could be a reporter covering a team. Those are the things that you have to do. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time. But if you outwork somebody, let me tell you, you'll be ahead of the game. I've always said that at the end of the day, somebody may be better than me, but they won't outwork me. And I'm okay with that, because as long as I give my best and do my best, that's all that matters.
Have you ever had the interview with little to no time to prepare your questions or research?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those are the things that are let me say they're exciting, because you get used to doing it. They can be intimidating in the beginning, because you're like, what am I going to do? But as long as you understand that you want to make sure that the subject that you're interviewing is comfortable and you're comfortable, then just act calm about it and ask the smart questions. And those are the basic questions. Ask yourself, why am I interviewing this person? And if you find out, like, for example, if I'm interviewing somebody and I have no preparation, let's just say, my producer tells me, and I've actually got a meeting in 5 minutes, and I call that meeting in 5 minutes, and he's like, we've got Steph Curry on the line right now, Kevin, you got to interview him. And the first thing I'm going to go with my head is, hey, Steph, how are you feeling? Because let's not forget, he's coming off a broken hand. So quickly, you're just saying, how are you feeling with the basic question, right? And then after that, then you could start to think while he's answering the question. So, Steph, what's next in your rehab? How much have you been practicing basketball? How has this pandemic hurt you? So you start to think of things that are in real life surrounding that athlete, and then that'll help you and the subject expand and get a good interview.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I know you said you had a meeting in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's okay.
So,
no problem, RJ. If you got one more, I can give you one more.
Awesome. So Cincinnati was very aggressive in free agency this year. With the likely addition of Joe Burrow into that mix of free agents, do you think they are now well positioned to take the AFC North back to the local?
No, it's going to be a while. I still think the Bengals are at least 2 to 3 years away. Being a rookie quarterback in the NFL is extremely tough. And he's going to have a lot of bumps and bruises. Just ask Baker Mayfield, who's in the same division, right? So I think the Bengals need to work on a variety of things. They got to make sure that defense is better, and they've got to get guys that are going to protect Joe Burrow. Because if he's your franchise quarterback, you need blockers. So I think the Bengals are at least 2 or 3 years away. But I can say that and count Joe Burrow out and then watch Joe Burrow prove everybody wrong like he did this past year at LSU.
Yes. Do you think LSU is going to be as good?
No.
Me neither. I think they go 10-2.
I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. Last year was a lightning in a bottle, a near perfect season or a perfect season. But I think Alabama's going to be back. But the two teams that I really like this year, no question, Clemson. But I really like Ohio State. I think Ohio State.
Do I.
I think Ohio State may be better than Clemson this year. We'll see how that plays out.
Man, Ohio State should have beat Clemson in that semifinal.
I know. That would have been an amazing matchup against LSU. But we'll see how Trevor Lawrence responds now coming off a loss.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kevin.
RJ, my pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your patience. I hope everybody stays safe and healthy, and I can't wait to see you guys back out there, okay? And by the way, RJ, you look sharp, man. I may have to steal some ideas from you when I get on SportsCenter today. That is a sharp outfit, man.
Thank you.
Good job by you.
Hey, Kevin.
You guys.
Kevin, this is Jim Schmutz. I just want to say thank you. I've got my finger pointed to the sign here. I am a big fan of Jimmy V's ESPY speech and the 3 things that make a great day: moved to think, moved to tears, and experienced laughter. You have given all that in 60 minutes. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of our 8,716 special Mixed Maryland athletes here. And RJ, I have to give the biggest shout out to you, man. You are a pro's pro. You are awesome. Yeah, let's give RJ a big round of applause.
RJ was the best. Well done,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Kevin, thank you for your authentic commitment to our athletes. It absolutely 100% showed through here today, interacting with RJ, and what you've meant to RJ is incredible. So thank you for taking the time out of your day. Please be well and stay healthy, and we'll look forward to hopefully connecting with you sometime in the future.
Jim, it's my pleasure. And also I want to say the lady with the baseball hat, Lisa Kavlakis, has been amazing in this program and believing in us. So thank you, Lisa, for everything you do for us.
Thank you,
RJ,
Lisa.
keep kicking butt, okay? And everybody stay safe, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Lisa, thanks so much.